Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, it's a big series. We've talked Braves baseball early on, but on the college level right now, both Alabama and Auburn and all of the SEC right now kind of going through the meat of their conference schedule. Auburn right now, they played a very, very, very tough schedule. They're 1-11. They could use some wins. Bama also with a nice weekend last weekend, and they're now in a position where they can rack up some wins. They kind of lead our talk about teams in and around the state and series coming up, this upcoming weekend. What are some of the things you're looking forward to as the Tigers meet for the first time in a while?
Well, I mean, overall in this series, Alabama's dominated. They've won in the last 11 series. They've won 9 of them. But the last time that they played, we're going to see the numbers on that. The last time they played at Tuscaloosa was 2018, and they got swept by Auburn, and they got absolutely manhandled. But you look at Auburn, the way they played this year, they're second to last in ERA in the conference, so their pitching's really struggled. And you mentioned 1-11 in conference play. That can be a little misleading because there are a couple 1-2-run losses in there. Alabama, their big problem is ranked teams. They are 2-7 against ranked teams, 3-0 against unranked teams in the SEC. During their 6-game losing streak, their offense struggled. They only scored 18 runs. Since then, in their last 8 games, they've scored 59 runs, including 19 against Samford the other day. So it's picking up a little bit. But I think, they haven't met at Tuscaloosa since 2018, where Auburn really embarrassed Alabama. So I think that if you're Alabama, and the way you've played so far in the conference, you want to distinguish that you are clearly better than Auburn. And right now, even though Auburn's 1-11, Auburn can come back. Say Auburn takes a couple of these games, there's not really that much separating them, but still, a couple weeks left before we really get into as we call serious baseball time. But I think that if you're in the SEC, you're going to have top-notch competition. So if you're a pitcher and you're coming in as a freshman and you're facing some guys with aluminum bats, you're expected for your ERA to be a little bit higher. So I'm not that surprised by some of the high earned run average numbers, especially for Auburn. I think that as the season goes along and as your arm gets a little more into shape, that those numbers will come down. But I think that now is the time where all the things that you would kind of put up with the first couple weeks of the season, the first couple months of the season, coming now where we're getting into warmer weather, there's not really an excuse for not being able to, have arm trouble or not being loose. All those things kind of go out the window as we move on further into April and into May. Exactly.
One of the hottest teams in the state is Troy. They'll go to Georgia State, go over to Atlanta to take on Panthers there. Meanwhile, Samford is also one of the teams that's on fire in this state, taking on Western Carolina. That game's at 1 game on Friday, 2 on Saturday. Same situation for Jacksonville State at Eastern Kentucky. UAB going to FIU down there over in Boca Raton down in South Florida for the Blazers. The Blazers right now on about an 8-game losing streak, looking to bounce back there in Conference USA. Meanwhile, Alabama's coming off a huge 19-run performance yesterday and looking to bounce back against Auburn. Head coach Brad Bohannon was made available to the media today to talk about that upcoming series against their arch rivals from Tigers.
Really excited about the weekend for all the obvious reasons. Not just Auburn being an in-state rival, but we've had a good week. We've won 4 in a row, and we're putting ourselves in a position where it is a big weekend. Where we can really accomplish some big picture things. So. Going to be a real challenge. Don't let Auburn's SEC record fool you. They're 1-11, but 9 of their 11 losses in league play have been by 1 or 2 runs. They've been in virtually every game. There's a nice nucleus of their team that has played in the College World Series. It's an older group of position players. It's a good offensive team, and it'll be a real challenge for us. So I'm happy with where our club is. I feel like we've grown a lot. We have so many of our position players that this is their first time through the league, and I think they've had 4 SEC weekends now, and you're starting to see some growth offensively, and obviously we're starting to get healthy on the mound.
So the last time these two teams met, it was an all Auburn affair, I think Alabama will probably use this as maybe some bulletin board material as they go in, even though the series now approaching 2 years, obviously because of what happened last year, which would have been the time that they would have met up back in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, like you said, Alabama's won 9 of the last 11 series overall, but this was one of their losses.
Right.
And this was pretty embarrassing. I mean, when you get outscored 45-10, 19-5, 20 for some of those games were just absolute blowouts. Only 22 hits for Alabama, 46 for Auburn. So I think Alabama, some of the guys in Alabama that were around for that remember.
Exactly. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we will dip into a very interesting topic. We'll stay in the world of baseball, but honor somebody that is very, very special. We'll have a lot more with Mark and I coming up next here on Overtime.